And we're here live on the Clown Puncher Chronicles, so to speak. I am your host, Robbie Miller. With me, Greg German, who is a self-professed German, or to the layman, a Kraut. Now, we're here to talk about really bad movies, mainly Michael Bay movies, because he is such an awful director. You have said before that you love Armageddon.
I do love Armageddon. You know, the scene when Steve Buscemi is riding the thermonuclear warhead like a cowboy, and the one dude yells at him for it, I think that was just the pinnacle of cinematic greatness.
Brilliant. Now, you are telling me that it's Ben Affleck, not Ashton Kutcher in this movie.
It is Ben Affleck, in fact. It's pretty easy to get them confused because they're both really pretty awful in almost everything they do, but they are, in fact, different people.
Interesting. Now, where would you rate this on Bruce Willis's all-time career list, Armageddon?
You know, it's got to be pretty... it's definitely on his top 10 list, but it's pretty low on the top 10 list. Probably like around like 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there.
I'd say 12 on his top 10 list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have Michael Clark Duncan in the movie, of course.
Right.
And Billy Bob Thornton.
You know, Billy Bob Thornton as, you know, this semi-cripple with the metal thing on his leg. You know, so he's kind of like the broken cowboy of NASA. You know, that was an exciting direction to go with that. You know, I certainly didn't buy him as anyone who would ever get into NASA, but it was certainly exciting.
Which, interestingly enough, he became some kind of farmer space guy or whatever in that.
People keep wanting to put him into space scenarios, it seems.
It's like Martin Lawrence with a cop.
Yeah, I don't know what they keep thinking, but...
Speaking of Martin Lawrence being a cop, Michael Bay also made Bad Boys 1 and 2.
Neither of which I've seen in their entirety.
And I thought
it is a tragedy to humanity that I have not seen either of those movies.
It really is. Now, he made one good movie, The Rock. Have you seen The Rock?
I have seen The Rock. I have seen that movie multiple times. It's sort of like my Grapes of Wrath. You know, it's just the movie that I keep with me almost all the time. You know, whenever I'm feeling down or a little out of it, maybe a little emo, if I'm feeling like I might start cutting myself, that's when I just decide, you know, maybe I should just watch The Rock. And then I think, you know what, I don't have it that bad. I don't have to stick a needle this long into my heart.
Possibly just that long.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah.
Now, in relation, that movie has Nicolas Cage, and Armageddon has Steve Buscemi, and they come together to make the wonderful movie Con Air.
Yes.
Have you seen Con Air?
Con Air is another one of my Grapes of Wrath. That, you know, the horrible Southern accent that Nicolas Cage has in that movie is really the linchpin of the entire thing, because whenever you think things are just getting too serious, you know, Nicolas Cage will just jump out there with some bad, fake Southern wisdom and really bring the whole thing, you know, really ground the entire movie.
Now, did you also feel let down when Steve Buscemi did not eat the little girl in that movie?
You know, I found it intriguing. I thought it was maybe a bit of a character growth moment for him, that, you know, he finally maybe didn't feel the need to murder every small child that he came into contact with and drive through 3 states wearing her head as a hat.
But didn't you feel that perhaps the movie would have been slightly more awesome had he?
If, like, for the rest of the movie, he'd just been wearing her head as a hat.
Like running through Las Vegas?
That would have been rather amusing, but I think it would have made the end scene with him at the crafts table a little less realistic.
Perhaps.
You know, I think people standing around him might have been, that's a little girl's head. Maybe we should call the police or something. That's not normal.
Now, along the lines of awful movies, you know, we have Con Air, Armageddon, and whatnot. You also said you like Repo, the Genetic Opera, starring Paris Hilton.
It's not starring Paris. She has a very, you know, this is the one problem with this movie. Everything about that movie is great. Paris Hilton is in it, and then people are just like, you know, they just check out. They hear Paris Hilton and they check out.
That's the reason.
And there's a lot of really other good things in this movie. It's about this, you know, dystopian future where organ failure has become rampant, and now there's this company GeneCo who's like making artificial organs for people. But if you fail to complete your payment plan, then they send out a repossession man to take the organs back. And it's a musical, starring Anthony Stewart Head, which many people might know from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Wow.
So you can't go wrong with Anthony Stewart Head.
Now, the director of, well, I would get into this, but we've really covered enough bad movies for anybody to think about, except for one more thing. The director of Repo, the Genetic Opera, also directed Saw 2 through 4.
He did.
Which means the bad ones without Cary Elwes.
Yes. Yeah, and he talks about this some on the DVD commentary actually about how, you know, Repo is essentially what he wanted to do so that he was like a real director and not just directing studio garbage. And of course this means that like they gave him the money to do it, but then after he made it, they just decided to blackball him and give him no support whatsoever.
Right. Well, thank you, sir. And this has been another installment of The Clown Puncher, all about awful Michael Bay movies.